Ask many married women if they will be truthful to themselves and to you. They will tell you that if they had not gotten married when they did, they would most likely have achieved more.
Welcome to Resonate with Tammy, the podcast where we explore the ups and downs of life, love, and everything in between. I'm your host, Tammy, and I'm so excited to share today's episode with you. Today we are celebrating a triple treat of awesomeness. Please join me in welcoming my childhood friend, fellow birthday mate. Yes, you heard me. We share the same birthday. She is Dr. Grace Chigala Ajaegbo Esquire. Welcome, Dr. Grace. Lovely to have you on today's episode.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure too. So, Grace, we need to tell our listeners how this topic came about. I think I remember calling you last week. We were talking about life and everything, and boom, it just dropped in our spirit, right?
Yes. We're talking about how some tough conversations need to be had on some topics that people tend to avoid. And this happened to be one of such topics.
Okay. Well, let me start with this first question. What are your thoughts, rather, on the idea that some people view having a child without a husband as selfish? And how do we think we can shape the conversation around this topic to be more supportive and inclusive?
Selfish.
Yes.
That word. I wouldn't say having a child without a husband is selfish. And I can understand why people would think that, because let's not forget that our society is patriarchal.
Okay.
And we've been groomed right from childhood, to believe that, a man needs to dictate how a woman lives her life.
Okay.
So it explains why people would come up with the belief that a woman needs to have a husband before she can have a child. It stems from years and years of, indoctrination of traditional, roles that have been set for women, religious expectations of women. So yes, it's not surprising that people think it's selfish for a woman to have a child without a husband. But I wouldn't say that is selfish.
Okay.
I would say that it is, if not the cardinal rule of nature for self-preservation. So, a woman's first responsibility is to herself, is to preserve herself, is to make herself happy.
Okay.
And over time, women have forgotten that and put themselves on the back burner and put every other person, before they put themselves.
Okay.
So I think it's about time women woke up to the understanding that if they are not okay, every other thing they place value on will not be okay.
Okay.
So it is a woman's responsibility to put herself first, which also means it's her responsibility to take charge of her happiness.
Exactly.
If she wants and a husband is nowhere in the horizon, she should feel free to have her child.
Exactly.
Husband or not. Putting herself first.
Yeah.
So it's not selfish. It's just, she taking charge of her life and making herself happy.
Yeah. Yeah. As someone who has built a life with your husband and children, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What advice would you give to a woman who is considering becoming a mother, but isn't in a romantic relationship or romantic partnership, rather? Should they prioritize finding a partner or focus on building a supportive community in other ways?
I would advise every woman, whether in a marriage, not in a marriage, a young woman, a teenager, not to measure the success of her life by answering the title of Mrs. We need to live above where we think that the title Mrs. is what defines the success of a woman.
Yes.
And so, knowing what I know now, for someone who's been married for 15 years plus, and who has 4 children, I would say, with the power of hindsight, there are some things I would have taken time out and done for myself before I got into marriage. Because marriage, in my opinion, is a roller coaster. Before you know it, you've lost yourself, system, you know. And if you are not resilient, if you have not built a strong base of self-value, self-understanding, it's so easy to lose yourself in the place of marriage. So I would say that marriage should not be the final goal of any young woman.
Okay.
It is part of life journey. It's part of the trimmings of life. And it will depend on what you prioritize. Not everybody will get married.
True.
Not everybody wants to get married. For
True.
those who don't want to, it should be okay not to want to. Society should no longer be defining what a woman should want for herself or not.
Well, I think it's because
every young woman,
sorry, Grace. I think it's because the religious angle says one should be married, and most people feel that for me to have a child, I need to get married because it's let me use the word biblical too. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest challenges that women, have to face. One of the hurdles that women keep facing, irrespective of how successful a woman is in other fields, how educated a woman is. There is always that expectation that until she is married, she's not considered totally successful. And that is erroneous. Very erroneous.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be what should define a woman anymore. Thankfully, we have gotten to, we've evolved as a society to a place where women are beginning to find their voices. Women are beginning, to be bold enough to do them. And women are beginning to question a lot of the religious expectations and a lot of the cultural, traditional expectations of women. And women are increasingly, doing them, overdoing what society expects. So, no woman, in my opinion, should allow society dictate for her what works best for her. Because the truth is, when the chips are down, in your moments of loneliness, in your moments of, disquiet, it's just you. Society is not there. And when the years have rolled past, you look back and you say, oh, I wish I had taken this step years ago.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I will be now.
Yeah.
There are people who may never marry in life. You may just not even be destined to marry. There are people who may not be very lucky with marriage. They may keep going in and out, in and out, in and out. It may just be best for them to be on their own. Okay? So trying to satisfy society would mean them destroying their own lives. So every woman should decide what works for her. It's not a one size fits all thing. For women, some women are just work best on their own.
Yeah.
Economically, they do better as single women. They can concentrate, they can thrive, they can, elevate on their own. For some women, being yoked with a partner slows them down. Ask many married women if they will be truthful to themselves and to you. They will tell you that if they had not gotten married when they did, they would most likely have achieved more.
Yeah.
So, I would just say, do you? And then if marriage falls into place in the process of you doing you, that's okay. But marriage should not, don't build your life around getting married. Don't make decisions because you want it to lead to marriage. Don't relocate to a place because you think it gives you higher chances of getting married. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Don't change a career pathway, because you think it will take you closer to marriage. Marriage, for me, should not be the price. It should be part of the trimmings of success. It should be part of the trimmings of life. If you want it, If you don't want it, you shouldn't be judged to be unsuccessful because you are not. It should not be the prize. It should be an option. Every woman needs to see it as an option.
Yes.
Something you would love to do, not something you must do.
Okay.
So yeah, choices are relative to people. Should be relative to people, yes, not society.
Let's explore the intersection of marriage and motherhood. Can you share your view on whether there is a right order for these life events? Should women feel encouraged to pursue one before the other? Or are there many paths to building a happy and healthy family?
Well, there's no set rule of which should come before which. Again, it will depend on the priorities of the woman.
Mm-hmm.
Marriage happened for me when I wasn't particularly looking to get married.
Okay.
And motherhood happened immediately after. I think I wasn't even ready. Mine was even funnier because my first issues were twins. Tammy, I specifically told God, please, the work in having twins is not here. I'm not sure that I have the grace that my father had raising I and my twin sister. So I was like, Lord, anything you want to give me, not twins. Yours truly had twins first. So I was thrust into the role of motherhood unprepared, especially motherhood for twins. And it was quite a journey, girl. If it was dependent on me, I would have loved to take 1 or 2 years, off before considering having my child. So nothing says that one must get married before you have children. In my opinion, you don't even have to get married if you want a child. If you don't want marriage, it's okay to want a child and not want marriage. It's enough of society telling us you cannot have a child if you are not married. That's how people end up married to the wrong partners because, they want to tick that societal box.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm married first. Now I have a child. Maybe all that they wanted was just a child. So I think that for those who would love to, get married first and have a child, that's fine. That's a choice. For those who would rather just have a child, and then maybe consider marriage later on or not at all, that should also be fine. It's their choice. So they should prioritize according to what they think will work best for themselves, because they know themselves better. They know their level of patience, their level of tolerance, their level of, understanding, their ability to share space, their ability to share themselves. They know themselves better than anyone or any society can. So a woman is in the best position to decide whether she's ready for marriage first or not, or whether she'd rather have her child and just, move on with her life. So there is no order. There's no particular order that must be followed. Just do what works for you.
Let's talk about autonomy and decision making. Grace, can you share your thoughts on how women can make these choices rather that aligns with their own value and goals, even when these may differ from societal norms around motherhood and family building?
Yes, I have an opinion or two on this. First of all, every woman needs to find herself. Until you find yourself as a woman, you would continue to succumb to societal expectations, for your life. So if you don't know what you want, if you don't have aspirations, if you don't have dreams, if you don't have goals that you're working, towards, you would end up relying on the path that society has tailored for women.
Exactly.
The stereotypes, you just find yourself subject to the stereotypes of society for women. So every woman needs to first of all find herself. And it is in finding who she is, what she wants, where she sees herself in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, how far she would want to go, where she would like to be. that she can now plan what fits into my plan. Is it a husband now? Is it a child now? Is it none of the above? With that taken care of, it would not matter what society thinks. It would not matter. She would not be bothered because she's the one tailoring her life by herself. But a woman who has not found herself, what does Grace want? Who does Grace want to be 5 years from now? Where does Grace want to be 10 years from now? Grace will now need to depend on, what does my family expect of me? Oh, I'm a first daughter. I'm a last daughter. I'm the middle daughter. What do they expect from me? What does my culture say I should be or I should do? There are some cultures that say that first daughters do not get married.
Yes.
And so, we have those customs in some parts of the Ipere tribe, Port Harcourt, I need a room pretty common. Let me, I'm not so sure, but some parts of the Ipere tribe have that culture where maybe where there is a shortage of male children, female daughter, usually the first daughter is required to stay behind, procreate to increase the family on behalf, of her parents.
That's sacrifice.
Same applies in Ogoni. Yeah, same applies in the Ogoni culture. There is also the Ogoni culture that requires, first daughters that are called, Sarah, I think, to stay behind, irrespective of whether she wants to get married or not, stay behind and procreate to increase the family. And the children she gives birth to, belong to her parents. Okay, so when a woman does not have a plan for her life, she's left with no option but to follow what customs say, what religion says, what society says. So you see that a lot depends on a woman, first of all, finding herself, drawing the path she wants her life to take, putting timelines, having a vision of what to achieve by those timelines. That way she would not be affected by what world people expect of her or what society expects of her. She will just do what works for her and not feel bad if it looks like she's going against societal expectation. So it's all about the self-value, the self-worth, and the self-awareness that a woman has.
Grace, it's been an absolute pleasure. Your insight on today's topic has been truly inspiring, and I really appreciate you coming over. Is there any final message or piece of advice you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Yes, I would like to say to any young woman who is listening, any young man who is also listening, because I believe that men too would love to have these conversations because they will have daughters and they will raise them. And they will raise them with mindsets or with stereotypes. I'd like to say to them to discover themselves on time.
Yes.
Don't wait until you are an adult before you start discovering yourself. As a teenager, as a young woman, you need to discover yourself. Who is Grace? What does Grace want to be? Who does Grace want to be? How does Grace go about achieving who she wants to be? So for a young woman, or an older woman who is not married up till now, but would love to have a child, please don't let societal impressions stop you from having your child. If you are religious and you think that, having sexual relations with a man who is not your husband to be able to have your child would be going against your faith, that's fine. There are all sorts of artificial inseminations. We have donor this and donor that. Just go to the fertility hospitals and they will walk you through the process of you getting pregnant without the trapping or the trimming of a partner or a husband. Don't wait, because you see, women have biological clock and they have different biological clock. It varies from woman to woman.
Yes.
So a woman may hit menopause late 30s. Another woman may not hit menopause until she's over 50. And so for a woman who may hit menopause in her late 30s, who is still waiting for a man to show up before she can have a child, will find herself, left empty-handed at the end of the day. Don't wait until you hit, your 40s and your 50s before you start considering the option of having your child. If you give yourself a timeline with which you would like to get married, for those who are interested in marriage, and marriage has not happened, move on to the next thing. What's the next thing? You also want to have a child. What's the process to follow? Find out the legal processes to follow and have yourself a child and move on. Be fulfilled with that. Feel complete with that. If marriage eventually happens, that's an extra. If it doesn't happen, you still have a life, you have your child, you have your joy. So don't wait. Don't pause your life because society has not approved. Do what is best for you and do it on time.
Exactly. I want to acknowledge that every mother's journey is unique. For our listeners who may be single mothers, adoptive mothers, or mothers by choice, we see you and appreciate your stories too. Thank you for listening. If you like this conversation, please subscribe to my channel, Resonate with Tammy, on YouTube and Spotify. And on TikTok is Unapologetic Tammy. Remember, motherhood is a journey that looks different for everyone. Embrace your own path and do not be afraid to define motherhood on your own terms. Thank you again, Grace, for coming over. We appreciate you again. Please do come back next time. And for our listeners, do take care and watch out for next week, Monday, as I drop another episode. Take care and goodbye.